here I am living in this zip code, and I've got neighbors, 4 blocks away that are having a totally different experience than me. I feel I got plenty of problems, but I feel loved. I feel supported. I have enough to eat, all these things. And so I started just getting really curious about this is so interesting. We're both part of the same system. Why is it so different for me and them?
Welcome to the Know Your Ship podcast, presented by eHub. I'm your host, Frank Dolce. I don't know if I've been this excited in a long time for our newest podcast creation at eHub. We have the Know Your Ship podcast, which is more business focused and focused on people who are in the shipping and logistics industry. Sometimes we have special guests who are doing cool things in the business world. That's why Preston Cochrane, my co-host, was a guest on the Know Your Ship podcast. But then we came up with this great idea to create community awareness about some of the amazing charitable organizations that exist in the state of Utah, in our community, and throughout the United States. And so I thought, who can I talk to about that? Who is the perfect person to talk to about that? It's this guy.
Literally.
Yeah, Preston Cochrane, who has been in this space for
too long.
Almost the entirety. Some people say too long. Almost the entirety of his career. He took a stint in more of the private industry and it was like the mob. He was drawn back into the charitable world. Has anyone ever described it that way?
Not the mob.
I think it
once you dip your toe in, it's hard to not want to swim in the deep end again.
Yes. Well,
because it's, you're solving hard, complex problems.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're going to talk to someone here today who's solving hard and complex problems. But just to get back to this, I talked to Preston. We had this great idea. And so we came up with our latest podcast, which is called eHub Gives a Ship, to spread awareness about the charitable organizations in our community. And when I said to Preston, number one guest on your list, Preston said,
Emily Bell McCormick.
Woohoo!
Let's get her on. Let's go there.
Let's go right there.
Let's aim high. Let's shoot for the stars.
Which is so crazy that I didn't think about Emily as number one, because we're literally in the same neighborhood. Our kids went to school together, just like our kids.
Well, when you think of game changers in the state and who's moving the needle in really hard things, like Emily's been there in the trenches, just doing the work.
Yeah.
And great to have her here.
I know. We're so lucky. And I'm really excited to know more about your story. I mean, it's really easy to look through the website and your LinkedIn and all of that stuff. And because we're in the same community, we know about what you're doing, but I'm excited to learn more and more in depth. So welcome.
And I don't think Utahns at large really understand the process that you have to go through, what she's been through and what she's done. Because it's really stretched beyond the state of Utah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. Well, and I got a little indication of that. That's why this whole thing started, is because I got to tour one of your facilities, the Other Side Academy, and of course you have the Other Side Village as well. And that was mind opening for me. And so here we are.
Yeah,
with
I'm
Emily.
So excited to be here. Thank you for having me. Been looking forward to this conversation.
Absolutely.
Thrilled to be the inaugural guest on the show.
Number one.
That's right.
We're hoping that you set a high bar.
Perfect. I'm going to do my best.
Okay. Very good. Well, you are the CEO and founder of a group called the Policy Project. Okay. Right. So for those of us who don't know about the Policy Project, can you give us a kind of a 30,000-foot view of what you're doing?
Yeah.
With this organization?
Absolutely. So I think, there are so many different ways to do good in society. And I love this podcast because you're really getting to the root of what makes communities strong, which are often nonprofits and the work that's happening there. one thing that we were kind of able to identify really early on was that there is so much good happening and the good is essential. But some of what we see in the nonprofit space does not necessarily address things upstream. It will sometimes be more of a Band-Aid. Like we're going to do a coat drive. Coat drives are extremely important. We need people to do them. And we have to have community partners and people that do those. But we also need someone to look upstream and say, why does this person need a coat in the first place? Like what is that is creating that need? And can we solve for that? So we started to look like, how do we do this upstream? The second thing that we looked at was, hey, how do we solve issues at a grand scale? So instead of impacting, 10 lives or 20 lives, which again, extremely important. And that's what you're going to get at a lot of places. We were really interested in, but how do we reach like hundreds of thousands or millions of people? How can we get to a scale where we're really impacting like a lot of lives at one time? And then how do we create good that changes forever? How can we make this legacy work? How can we change things and have them stay changed? And this is my own naivete at the time, but it turns out that that's policy. So policy is kind of this weird thing. It's so snoozy. People don't want to talk about it because it sounds like politics or like, oh, it's going to stress me out. Not politics. Policy is really just like the rule making of a state or a city. And so what we decided is we're going to work and use policy at a state level. So lawmaking at a state level to change things for the better in society. And we do that by bringing philanthropists together, community together, and the legislature together. So once we combine those things, we're able to kind of make shifts, and this will make a lot more sense once I talk about what we actually do day to day. But that is how we make a change.
Yeah, that's amazing. And what are the 5 initiatives you have underneath the policy project currently?
Yeah. So we have worked on getting period products like tampons and pads into every school in the state of Utah. So now, kindergarten through 12th grade, if you were in a girl's bathroom, there are going to be period products freely available in those places. Mm-hmm. Also in colleges and universities. We got them in state buildings. So really just like normalizing period products, getting them everywhere and saying, hey, if we're going to offer toilet paper, let's also offer period products. These are so necessary. We then worked on something that we call teen resource centers. And those are basically these, like a physical room inside of a high school where kids can take a shower. They can do their laundry. They can get grab and go food, a string cheese or chocolate milk. And there's also an adult in that space that talks to them and can help connect them to more resources. What we found is like 1 in 50 of Utah's students is experiencing homelessness. That is insane. That is too many. And we've got about a third of our kids that are, living in poverty. Mm-hmm. And so we just know that they might need some of those concrete supports. We want those kids at school. We don't want them going somewhere else. So let's put them in the school. So we were able to get those into about half of Utah's high schools. And then we worked on child sexual abuse prevention. Really a tough one. Something that a lot of people don't want to, none of us want to talk about it. We don't want to even acknowledge that that's a thing because it's so, it's so hard to talk about and so hard to think that that can happen. But Utah's rate is almost double the national average. We're about 1 in 7 kids is sexually abused. And it ends up being a big precursor to a lot of other societal problems like addiction, mm-hmm. incarceration, the inability to stay in long-term meaningful relationships, homelessness, those things. Mm-hmm. And so we said, hey, what can we do about this? So we worked on a law that said, every elementary school, every student will have access to the curriculum that teaches them what it is and who they can talk to if they have a problem. And we've worked on keeping cell phones out of the classroom. We've worked on feeding kids that can't afford school lunch. So a whole bunch of different things, but that's the list so far.
How did you narrow that down? Like, as you were sitting there going, okay, we've got all these issues. Mm-hmm. These are the 3 we're going to pick.
Yeah. It's extremely hard. I would say that is the hardest part. We actually have this, document that we keep that's called All the Ideas. It currently has 900 different policy ideas. And so taking that, because there's so much need. Sure. So we really try to look at like, okay, what's happening in the state of Utah? Where is the need the greatest? Is it something that we're able to do right now? Because although we're not political, we need to deal with like the politics that are currently in place, no matter what they are, whether they're right or left, it doesn't matter. We just need to make sure that we're like able to get something through. And so we'll kind of look at like, can we create, a solution to this? Can we make sure that we're not just saying what the problem is, we're solving it. And then, do we believe we can get it through right now?
So what sort of traction did other states, once I know you had to get some legislation and stuff like that. Was it model legislation that other states just essentially adopted?
Yeah. So, we have some of the legislation that we've crafted here in Utah has expanded to other states. So like Alabama, Georgia, Alaska, some of these other states have worked on what we call the period project, like getting period products into schools. And so typically when we're working with them, we will just advise them on like, here's what our bill said. Here's kind of what we did. These are like best practices, but knowing that every state is going to be so different and is going to need kind of a different way to approach that.
I think it's worth mentioning, and it's on your website as well, but it's nonpartisan. The organization is nonpartisan, totally. Left, right, middle, wherever you are. These are human issues that we're dealing with. It's non-political. So I think I really appreciate that you put that out there.
Yeah. And I love that. I think it's a big piece of what we do because in the world as we know it, everything wants to be politicized. And we are just kind of staunchly apolitical, like completely politically neutral. And we never break that. I feel like sometimes I'm accused of being super far right and sometimes I'm accused of being left. And I'm like, turns out that's probably the perfect place for me to be because we're just apolitical. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask, was there how did you get involved with this? What is the genesis?
The backstory.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it. I knew I needed a good co-host. You just proved your value right there. If you don't contribute anything else today, which you probably won't, that was enough.
Not Backstreet Boys. We're not going back to his high school days, but backstory.
Backstory. Preston, that's all he needed from you. You have made your contribution. Yes, should feel proud.
Thank you, Preston.
Yeah, backstory is random. Started in private industry, worked in strategic communication, was a consultant, kind of I did some stuff in the fashion industry. And then when I probably hit a midlife crisis around 40, I just could not shake this feeling that there had to be a better, broader way to solve for some of the problems we were seeing in society. And I think it was the genesis was read a lot of books about lives that were not the same as mine, but that were nearby. Here I am living in this zip code and I've got neighbors, 4 blocks away that are having a totally different experience than me. Mm-hmm. I feel I got plenty of problems, but I feel loved. I feel supported. I have enough to eat, all these things. And so I started just getting really curious about this is so interesting. We're both part of the same system. Why is it so different for me and them? And I know some of it is personal choice, but I also know some of it is not, and had some cool experiences. And Frank was kind of a neighbor and friend and we adopted a couple kids. Really interesting. Helped my perspective grow even more, meeting these birth mothers and hearing about their lives and getting to know them and how different it was and how just the slightest drop of fate made it so I landed in this body and they landed in that body, in their situation and my situation. And for some reason that has always intrigued me. And so it took me a minute to figure out that the way to solve for it was policy. And I tripped into that a little. it's easier to see problems from a distance. Like when you're living in something, I can walk in one of your houses and be like, wow, this is really dirty, but you walk into mine and you're probably thinking that, you're thinking the same thing. I just don't see it. I'm so used to it or whatever. And I think like giving like that same kind of perspective, I started looking at what had happened with apartheid in South Africa. So interesting, where it was like really on kind of like racial lines, and there was a lot of poverty, and then very concentrated wealth and stuff. And just like, how does that happen? And, it was like reading about Nelson Mandela and stuff and understanding that, all this stuff, nothing happens overnight. It wasn't like somebody came in and just said, no one here can be educated past the third grade. It's like those things happen little by little. They happen via laws or policies. And so it helped me kind of see that this could be a really cool tool. Like in the inverse, instead of using it to create a weird system, you can use it to create like something beautiful. Yeah.
When you think about the policy project, like the name, did you have other names you were considering?
Yeah, that's so funny. Yeah. Nomenclature is the worst.
It's hard, right?
I had a dress company years ago called Shabby Apple. Yeah. And the amount of effort, we actually talked to Martha Stewart's brand expert about that. It was so special. But I do know like the trial and travail of landing on a name. The policy project, we looked at like the word advocacy. We looked at the word, like community. We looked at a lot of different words to kind of pull into that. But the policy project felt really good because something about the word project felt experimental. And this was pretty new and pretty experimental. And so I liked the feel of that. Like, we're just going to try this out and see if it actually works or not. Who knows?
It feels like the perfect name. Like however you came up with it, you just nailed it.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
It's been a good one.
Okay. So as you got started with this and determined that policy was the way to approach this, I'm sure you just went in and started hitting home runs.
Yeah, it's so easy.
Every single day. So
easy.
Well, maybe tell us about that. Tell us about. I know Preston has thoughts about this as well, but there are certain challenges and obstacles to running a nonprofit and a charitable organization. So maybe you can help us understand some of the things that you have to go through.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as far as like the perspective of actually running a nonprofit, it is really interesting. I've, run small scale businesses before, just little, startups and things, but it is very different in that, like we all know, money, right? Like you've got to fundraise constantly. And so I would just say that whereas in like the kind of private industry, you can focus it on like, this is our core audience. Like this is who we're working for. I think the nonprofit, you got to be a lot wider. You kind of have to make a case that the community can't do it without you. That you're so important to the majority of people that like, you've got to sustain this thing. So I would just say like, that's an interesting challenge, I think. And then, depending on what you do, policy is really interesting because we work with lawmakers and that you've got to, we have 104 people in our legislature and you got to make most of them think you have a good idea, and it's like, hey, they're all over the board. You've got some people you just got every kind of thinking, and so, just kind of interesting bringing them along and then donors and then your employees.
And volunteers. The organization probably couldn't run without volunteer help as well. And that has its own challenges. Yeah. It sounds so great. Like,
oh, so great.
I'm going to get all these people. They're going to be so excited about the project and everybody's going to jump in. But all of those are just individuals who have all their own individual issues that they're dealing with.
100%.
Yeah. You have a lot of audiences. You've got staff, donors, volunteers,
yes,
board members.
Yes.
What's your secret to keeping them all engaged?
Yeah, it's
a hard thing to do.
It's so hard to do. Still getting there, but I can tell you that, I think it is what you said, like keeping them engaged is the key. And so figuring out how to do it where they feel like they have a personal attachment to what you're doing can be really hard because you don't have the kind of staff that, we don't have 500 people working for us that can be like, you're in charge of those 5 people and you're in charge of those. And, and so I would say we really do try to kind of identify like, okay, donors. And then how do people like to be engaged? That's such a specific audience. So like, in what way does this person, do they want to come on like a field trip with us to Kane County and see what a teen center looks like in rural Utah? Or is it like, no, they're good. They just want to kind of see the numbers, like give us your metrics. Are you guys performing or not?
What are your outcomes?
Where are you? I would say community is really interesting, especially for us because we change topics a lot. And that is unique, a little bit different from other nonprofits because typically if you get to know a nonprofit and they're like, we work in alleviating hunger. It's like, that is so freaking awesome. They're doing all these like different initiatives within that. We're like more, method devout and subject agnostic, and so we're a little bit more like, no, we know how to plug this in and get crap done. I'm editing my speech for a podcast.
Yes, thank you.
Once in a while.
Are we PG or R? What's our rating?
I'll have to check with the sources.
Oh, it's good. You got to have some relief swearing. It's always one of those things that helps me.
You know what? As an aside, Preston and I were doing a little prep for this prior to, and I got stuck. Like, I think I have early onset dementia or something. I was thinking of the word, but it wasn't coming out of my mouth. And Preston, to his great credit, gave me a word that I could use whenever that happens. And he said, it's like the reset. You say this word and it resets.
You have to find your own reset.
Wait, is this actually true? Because
you've got to find your own reset
use
word.
This.
No, it is true. I would say that it was mildly effective.
Okay, mildly.
The reset word, but I just would have never thought of it. And it's a word that I can't use. Podcast. Think of that. Anyway, so Preston running charitable organizations and
helping with memory.
Helping with yes.
We
dementia.
appreciate that. Yeah.
I was, maybe that could be
too.
One of the next projects, like the memory loss project.
I know.
Or something. I mean, this probably happens to you all the time. You start talking about, look, we're going to limit cell phone use, and we're talking about, trying to help children who have been in these situations that no one likes to talk about or even think about, or providing services for our, women's community and stuff like this. And then somebody inevitably will say, you ought to do this.
All the time.
Okay.
Wait, what do you guys have for me? Do you have one?
No, I don't. But I want to know, what was the most interesting policy project someone said, you should really take this on?
Oh my gosh, we have had so many. Okay, give me 2 seconds to think about that. We do get approached about this a lot, and some are amazing, and others are very obscure and random.
Are most from legislators like, I'm interested in running legislation on this, or is it just general public?
I would say legislators definitely will reach out and be like, what do you think about this? Or like, is this something you guys would want to be involved with? But most are from just general public. And like me at an event talking or something, and a line or some people coming up after and being like, you know what you really need to do? And I mean, we have had many, it's like we need supports for pets who are disabled, and that can be very devastating. That probably isn't something that we're going to take on, or building housing for like all state employees. We're not going to do that. Some of those things. So there are a lot of interesting ideas, and the one thing, when people approach you about these things is that they feel a lot of passion about them, and it's coming from somewhere. And it's like, okay, cool. Thanks for sharing with me this very personal thing to you,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Have you had any, or could you tell us a story about a success that you've had maybe with the legislature or with someone who's been a participant in one of your projects.
Yeah.
And not necessarily maybe outcome driven, but like, what's the big win? What's the
absolutely.
thing that keeps you going?
Yeah.
As far as your role?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I would say the thing that keeps me going, even though I talk about the numbers and like, I do like big numbers. Even though I talk about that, it is the one that keeps you going. It's like there's this really, incredible family that we met when we were working on the sexual abuse prevention stuff. And it turned out that an uncle had been abusing a bunch of the grandkids, and it was extremely hard on this family. He wasn't prosecuted because there's some issues there that need to probably be fixed with policy eventually. It's really hard to prosecute child sexual abuse abusers or perpetrators. And this family ended up, you can imagine when it's someone in your family that's perpetrating, how that would cause a massive
fragment.
Yeah, it would. And they had a lot of siblings in their family. And they said that, working on this project, it gave them something to focus positive attention toward. Like, we can actually do something. Like, our voice matters. We can make a positive change and help prevent this, like, so other kids don't have to suffer what our family did. And at the end of the day, this one woman, her name's Lisa, came up and was just crying. And she was like, you will never know. Like, yes, this made a huge difference for us, but it changed my family. Like, my family is forever different because of this. It like allowed for healing that we never would have expected. We didn't even know we needed. We didn't even think there was an option to do it that way. So I would say, like, that's a big win when you hear like pain and suffering kind of dissipate. It's like, oh, that is so relieving. And then I would say, like, the other kind of wins we get, a story about the other kind of win we get is like a cultural change. And this is one of my favorite stories because it was so unlikely. But when I first started talking about periods, I mean, you guys are guys, it like is awkward, right? Mm-hmm. People have
we have daughters.
Yeah.
There we go.
Still, I feel pretty awkward.
Just wait. You're going to get a lot more awkward. So I think like I'm looking up, gosh, this is so weird. Why hasn't the United States and Utah specifically ever done anything around periods? Because 50% of the population has a period for 40 years in a lifetime. And it's like 4 to 6 days a month. I mean, it is a shiz ton of time, that somebody spends having a period. And hey, we'd just come out of COVID and we all saw how quickly everybody was like, and masks now, and it was like done, and vaccinations now. Like, and it does not matter how people feel about that. I'm just saying we were very quick to like,
to mandate
to come in and say like, this is what we're going to do. And so I'm like, wow, well, this has just been millennia that the ladies have had periods and we haven't done anything about it. So that seems like so funny to me. And I think that maybe a gift for me is I'm not naturally going to be mad about it. I'm just like, this is just stupid. We can like change it. No big deal. Right? Like, we can change it. So I hadn't worked with the legislature before, and I go in, I kind of look up Utah's history. Turns out somebody had run a bill once that was like, we're going to get rid of the tampon tax. And the word was never said. The word tampon, menstruation, period, pad, blood, nothing was ever said in the sacred halls of the Utah Capitol. So I was like, oh shiz, we're dealing with like a multiple, like this has like layers. There's a lot of stigma here that whether or not it's just there because they won't even say the word. Mm-hmm. And so I remember going into my first meeting with a legislator, and it was like so great. I have a friend who is a lobbyist, and he hooked me up with this guy. And so, I go into this, I'm in this fancy, beautiful office at the Utah State Capitol. I'm so nervous because I don't know, like, I'm learning the process. I literally had to Google, like, is there just a House and a Senate? Like, I wasn't totally sure, figured it out. But I'm sitting in this room, and it's me and a couple men and good guys, because I know they're willing to talk about it. But when I bring it up, the legislator at first says to me, this really feels like something the family should be in charge of, like this, like period products.
Individual level.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. This should be an individual thing. And absolutely not, the government should not be involved in everything. I'll be the first person to say that. However, in this specific case where we're talking about schools, it was like, yeah, but we've got 80% of girls had missed at least one class because they didn't have a period product. It's like, we can't have 8 in 10 girls miss class. That's crazy. Like, that's a problem,
Like saying, 80% of the kids playing football don't have football pads or a helmet.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's just ludicrous. Why would you even say something like
Yes.
To put it into perspective.
But thank you.
For former
most people
football players.
Exactly.
When
so good.
they see me glaze over, like, Frank's not getting this.
Yeah.
They'll just relate it back to some football thing, and then I get it.
It's an analogy. I thought, I was thinking of you.
I appreciate that. Of
course.
Really.
We really have to help our friend Frank along.
It's like
put it into a
the same thing.
Preston.
Wait,
can you imagine though? Like, we don't have helmets. They
don't have a helmet.
They go out.
He can't play a ball without a helmet. Now it
That's
makes
called rugby.
sense.
Exactly.
It's called rugby.
Can't do math without a tampon, So we're sitting in this room and I'm like, okay, like I feel you and everything. Like I understand what you're saying. Government should not be involved in everything. That would be a disaster area. That said, this is kind of a special case. And he pushes back a little bit more. And I was like, okay, I'm going to say something that's going to make everybody feel a little uncomfortable. I'm sitting here on this beautiful white chair. And I was like, what if right now I stood up and there was blood on the chair? The men are just, stop, Emily, stop, make it stop. Someone make it stop.
Yes, I feel that.
I know you do. And I think it was just like such a good moment because I was not trying to be an a-hole, but I was like, I can tell this is not getting through. And so I just kept looking into his eyes. Like, you are going to acknowledge that I actually said that. Yeah. And he was freaking a champion. He was like, you know what? You're right. That would be awkward. And I was like, yep, I would die of awkward, but I know that you would be dying too. This would be awkward for all of us. It would not be okay. And like, bless this man, he was like all in from that point on. And so I think, when we're talking about like, why do you do the work? Sorry, yielding back to your question a few minutes ago, but like, why do you do the work? It's like seeing the culture change in a way. We went ahead, we labeled that project the Period Project, which basically gave every person on Capitol Hill the permission to say the word period. Because up until that point, hey, it wasn't like the guys are just big old jerks and like, wow, they do not care about the ladies. It wasn't that. It was like they've never been welcomed to the conversation. Like, but many of our lawmakers are male. And so until they were like, hey, come do this with us. Like, I'm giving you the permission to be like, oh, I'm just working on the Period Project right now. Like, you just said the word period. It's totally fine, And so it was just this very cool way to like, first of all, recognize the reason the world isn't better than it isn't occasionally is because there's an a-hole around, right? But usually it's like, it just hasn't been, we haven't thought about it. And so when we go in so hot and ready to blame people, it's, if I came in here hot and was like, how dare you, whatever, I'm insulting the studio or I'm insulting whatever, you're going to be like, I freaking hate this lady. I'm never talking to her again, So I just think like giving everybody the space to do the right thing is like a huge part of what we do.
But what was really cool too at the Capitol, and I was up there a couple of times and I'd see your groups and they were up there advocating, they were educating, and there was girls from all ages, every ethnic diversity you can imagine. Yeah. And I think it was cool for them to be a part of something bigger than themselves, but to be able to say, hey, we did it. We got to win for something that for them, it meant a lot. Yeah. Right? They probably didn't know what they were getting into to begin with, but from the outside, it was just really kind of cool to see this movement.
Yeah. I will say it's been really neat because with the work we do, we have to have the community come on board. That's just kind of the formula. And it has like different people come out for different things. Like you can imagine you've got periods, but then you've got student hunger. Looks really different, periods
student
are
homelessness.
Amy Dolce is coming and, you got all these, my neighbors and friends. And then you had homelessness and it was a different crowd that was there for that. That was like, yeah, I grew up actually totally housing insecure didn't know where I was going to sleep.
I don't want to go to school. I can't wash my clothes. I don't have deodorant. I mean, all those things that
exactly.
you take for granted of.
Yeah. Had one person from Beaver, and there's a pig farm there. The kids will go early in the morning, 4 a.m. to work at the farm. They're not going to school after that. You're not sitting next to the girl or guy that you have a crush on smelling like a pig. Mm-hmm. And so, they just were like, this is so freaking cool. If I would have had this, I would have stuck to school. I wouldn't have dropped out, like if I could go to school, I could wash my clothes, take a quick shower and come back. But like also didn't have parents in a position to come pick them up from the farm, drive them home, let them shower, get ready, drive them to school. Like that wasn't their world.
It wasn't luxury. Yeah.
Mm-mm.
No. Well, I think one of the interesting things I said this to Preston as well, like, you think you look at something like homelessness and it seems so overwhelming. Like, how do you get involved? I said to Preston, like, am I supposed to give a couple bucks out the window, or do I just, avert my eyes and drive by? And what Preston and his organization do is they put this framework, a solution that's available to everybody. Now I have wristbands with a number, there's a resource, and there's a plan in place. It's not, like you said, giving out coats and socks is amazing.
Yes.
But it's a Band-Aid, and there's a real solution here. So how do you and that's what the policy project is providing, a real solution to overwhelming problems. Yeah. And so how do you outreach to the community? How do you get the community involved in helping you to put forth all of these efforts on the project side?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I would say that's a trick. And when we work with legislators and stuff, that's the thing they're most impressed by, is like the ability to gather community, because it's really hard. And I think, especially around, as I mentioned in the beginning, something as snoozy as policy, right? It's like, how do you get people to come out? And I think with that one, we welcome everybody to the conversation. There is no one too educated and no one too uneducated to be a part of this. And so we try to meet people where they are. People are on social media. That's where the people are right now, right? Mm-hmm. And so we try to, make sure that our social media game is buttoned up, that we're using like weird basic things, but just like branding 101, like using colors that are approachable, like our color this year is going to be bright green. It was periods were pink. Teen homelessness was like a baby blue, like a little bit.
Breast cancer awareness.
Exactly. Exactly. Like stealing a page out of all these other books and saying like, what are all the ways that we can welcome people to this conversation? And so we'll do that. And we travel to different communities. One of the kind of risk factors for us is having this be Wasatch Front work. We can't do it like that because we're a statewide org. Mm-hmm. And so we try to be really cognizant of like, we're going to hit Cache County, we're going to hit Washington County, but we're going to also hit Daggett and Grand and we're going to try to hit a lot of the counties to make sure that they know like, hey, this is important for you to engage in, and we're going to need you if you want this to get done.
Yeah. I think a good way, going back to Frank's question, when you look at like homelessness, we always talk about, is it a hardware or a software problem?
Oh, yeah.
So hardware being, we can build housing, we can build so much affordable housing, but that's not going to solve homelessness. It's a software problem. It's a behavior problem.
Totally.
And so just like with the Period Project, hardware, software, in implementing and being able to combine those two together, really you have to understand what the problem is to define the solution.
Yeah.
Right? And so that hardware kind of software dynamic, I think in a lot of ways is a good way to think of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow, I do. I love that. That is so well said. And I love the work. You know this, but I love your work, Preston. It's amazing. Just your approach is so interesting because you do such a good job of integrating those two. Like you got to fix the person and have the house, right? You got to do both.
Yeah, you got to recalibrate, as we say, recalibrate your moral compass.
Yep.
And because many have had housing, they just lost it. They don't know how to keep it.
Yep.
They've got to work on their mind. They've got to work on stabilization. They've got to work on behavior and accountability and all those things that traditionally, in the homeless space, it's just been, how do we help someone right today? Like a coat drive or a meal.
Yeah.
Things like that. It's not long term.
Yeah. And people do, we want quick answers, just it's impossible for humans to not, what is it? Occam's razor, like the simplest solution, is usually the right one. And so we always crave that. And you want to say that, homelessness is just about housing. I have heard that so many times. I can't even imagine how many times you've heard it. I've heard it a lot. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you just need to talk to 20 people who have experienced it. And there are a lot of reasons for it, and a lot of things we can do differently.
Well, that's the other thing is we have a perception of what the issue is. And lots of times that perception is
that's right.
Only partially right at best.
Yeah, that's right. And again, even those we're looking for the easy, like, well, they did it to themselves. Or, like we love to just say like, I would never be in that situation, Yeah. And I think
it's
tricky,
like you said, it's a razor thin. Okay.
Yeah.
I know Preston has a lightning round of questions because we want to get to know Emily Bell McCormick on a deeper level.
And these are going to be deep, I feel.
Deep. But before we do that, how can people find you? How can people get involved? And what are you looking for as an organization?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's just thepolicyproject.org. We're on Instagram, we're on LinkedIn, we're kind of around social, if you're on social. And the best way to get involved is, to volunteer, to donate, like all of these things are needed as they are with many nonprofits. But I would just say like, we try to really honor what you're able to do and bring like, what are your specific talents and engage you in that way. So yeah.
I'm curious, like on that, like, did you have, tampon manufacturers and those that are in, did they start donating or did that create some awareness for them?
We did. We had, the easiest way to solve like the period products in schools was if we did 100% of the legwork and kind of laid it out to the legislature and to the Utah State Board of Education. Like, here's this nice little package. Not only do we have this for you, we found some donors who are going to buy every single dispenser for every single bathroom. Because
it's not like you're asking for an appropriation to install in every one of those, because the cost of that would be huge, right?
So we got that funded separately. Wow. And so like I know Preston and I have talked about like, how do you kind of work with the legislature? And I would just say like, the same way you work with everybody, make their job as easy as possible. You've got to
educate them.
You got to make it easy.
200 things coming at them every day.
Exactly. Right? Like, I think we get a lot of policy recommendations. Imagine being a legislator. It's a lot. Mm-hmm. And so it's just like, hey, let me tell you about this great idea, and this is how you do it. So easy, Yeah. So as we were doing that, we found a period product manufacturer that we just like loved the look and feel of it. It was like the product was good. So we worked with them. Their name is Aunt Flo. They're out of Columbus, Ohio. And they were really good about saying, we chatted with them and we're like, we would love to get a donation. So, because what we know is when these girls go home for like Thanksgiving or Christmas, they don't have period products because 25% of girls cannot afford period products at all in the state of Utah. So a quarter of girls, their periods are not stopping. So that means they're not going to work. They're missing all these big other opportunities. And so we worked with them, and we do get like a period product donation once a year. And then we take all of the products to different communities. We pack them up in little bags and then deliver them to the schools, especially schools that experience the most need.
Yeah. Wow. So lightning round questions.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. This has been so great. It's been so informative and so enlightening, and Preston was right. You were the best first guest we could ever had on the eHub Gives a Shit.
That's right.
Podcast. And we're going to be doing this. We're going to be doing this regularly, probably at least once a month. We'll have a new guest and a new charity, a new something to talk about in this
so
world.
Tune in.
So tune in. Yeah. And I don't know. Am I supposed to say subscribe or something like that? I don't know how I don't know how any of this works. But we're happy to have this conversation. So yes, now the lightning round questions.
Tell us about Emily. So is there a book, a publication, a movie, a song that just really like inspired maybe your leadership or your approach or perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. I I would say, A Long Walk to Freedom. I mentioned that before, but I think that book is so good. It's so interesting to hear like how a country kind of deals with difficult problems and then how they come back together. Also, Just Mercy by Brian Stevens is so good. That one is just a fascinating perspective on like how people get into tough situations and how life in America can look so different for different people. And I think if you're wanting to kind of broaden your perspective, I would read Just Mercy any day of the week.
Right. What was your first paid job?
My first paid job was at Extra Space Storage.
What?
I know.
I know about Extra Space Storage.
Frank knows about Extra Space Storage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I have a
you have a friend,
yes,
a family member that works there.
Very close friend.
Yes.
An associate.
Right.
Yep. And I was an executive assistant there, and I had to. Being an executive assistant is an awesome job. But for me, it was like very humbling because I had a different idea of what I wanted to do right after college, and I could not find a job. I could not find a job. And so it was like, I'm sure very good for me to like have that time and be like, okay, just my job is just to make someone else's dreams come true.
Yeah.
Yes. Let's do this.
When you tell people, I work for a nonprofit, so do you actually earn an income, or
yes,
like how does that work? What's a myth that you'd like to bust about nonprofits? Is there one that you hear you're just like, oh my God?
Okay. This is actually kind of a mean one, but yeah, there is one. And it is that like every time I speak at something, I have 27 people come up to me and say like, I'm starting a nonprofit right now. And I would say that I think for some reason when people jump into starting a nonprofit, they're like, if you're starting a business, if Frank and I are chatting and Frank's like, I'm going to start a business today. I'm going to be like, cool. What's your business plan? Like who are your competitors? Where are you getting your funding? Like all of these questions, it like triggers a million questions.
Yeah. What are your articles of incorporation?
Yeah.
What's your board? Composition, like all these things.
Exactly. Like who are you? How are you sourcing product or whatever it is you're doing? Right. You're going to ask those like right off the bat. And I think with like, nonprofits, there's a tendency to be like, I'm going to start a nonprofit. And people are like, oh, you're the best. That's amazing. And you're like, but what is your game plan? Like a nonprofit is a business. A nonprofit it's a business. I mean, it's a business for good.
Yeah. It's a tax designation.
Yeah. It's just, exactly. You could be an LLC or a 501c3 or a 501c4 or, whatever.
C6. Yeah.
Yeah. You can be all those things, but it's like, don't think coming into a nonprofit that you should not be so freaking buttoned up. Like, are there people already doing what you're doing? Check it out before you get started. Do that. Like spend a minute in, because if you want to be successful, I think people are like, well, 99% of nonprofits fail. And I'm like,
yeah, it happens so much. I'm so glad you bring that up because people will say, oh, I'm thinking of starting this nonprofit. What do you do? We're doing this. Oh, have you ever heard of this organization?
Yeah.
No, I've never heard of them. Well, they're doing exactly what you're describing.
Exactly.
Well, there's a lot of crossover in the private, in the nonprofit industry because it's not just a good idea.
Yeah,
it's gonna vault you to the top. I have a lightning round question. Can I participate?
Shoot. Yeah.
When you need to unplug.
Oh.
Okay. Well, tell us about that process. Is there activity? Is there music? Is there a quiet room? Like, how do you unplug?
Yeah, that's a really good question because it is like adulting is exhausting, and adulting in the nonprofit world is super exhausting. I'm going to put on big old headphones. I'm going to get my playlist. Mm-hmm. I'm going to get some running shoes on. I'm not going to run. I am going to dance.
Wait.
By myself.
Literally dance
billion%.
Really?
All day long.
Okay.
3 a.m.
Frank claims to be a really good dancer, by the way.
All right, Frank.
I don't
dance off.
Other people tell me that. It's not like I'm saying. Many people have said
he's a good dancer.
You're a really good dancer. Okay, so what?
You're an okay football player, but a great dancer.
Well, I think they're aligned.
They actually might be, honest coordination.
Lynn Swann, you may or may not know the story. You maybe know the story. Lynn Swann was a great wide receiver in the NFL, won several Super Bowls with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Number what?
88.
Thank you.
Fantastic, unbelievable, He took ballet lessons.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. He was, I don't know if many people did that, but he did, and he was great.
It was a thing.
Okay.
Love it.
So what music is playing while
What's on
you're
your playlist?
What's on the
The
playlist?
top 3.
Do you guys want to guess?
I'm going to go with
You can give me genre.
classical.
Okay.
I'm going with some rap, hip hop.
Yeah, definitely rap, hip hop. And then some like
You're not, wait.
Sia, like some ladies like Sia. And I
Do you know
listened
who
to
Sia
Tori
is?
Amos the other day. Back to the old school.
Oh, that's the old school.
When you said you were dancing around, I pictured like...
Oh, not ballet, friend.
That's what I pictured. I pictured the ballet studio with the pointy shoes. Because you're such a graceful...
All I have to say is anybody who has the great fortune to work with the legislature will also be dancing to hip hop very soon. Getting it all out,
Oh, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Great question.
Thank
It
you.
was a good question. You should ask everybody that.
I might. I probably have. The one that we always ask on our other podcast, the Know Your Ship podcast, you're welcome to answer it if you'd like, is would you rather ship your bed or ship your pants? And this is the reaction we get sometimes.
Yeah.
It's a kind of a joke because it's a play on words.
Yeah.
But people are actually trying to...
Oh, yeah. I actually did think that at first. I was like...
So you're like, wait, it'd be really difficult to ship my bed. And I'm like, would it? Yeah, I think it's easier to ship my pants. Because you can fold them up. I mean, they go through this whole thing.
Less. It's cheap.
Pretty good. I didn't hear it until after you said it. So I like it.
Okay. But I digress. Go ahead. Any more lightning round questions that you have for...
Is there a question you would hope we would ask that you wanted to educate us on that we didn't ask?
That is a good question.
Or something you want to tell us that you just want everyone to know, oh my gosh, this is what we're working on. And
Sure. I mean, this is going to be way cheesy, but I would just say there is endless good that can be done in this world. It does not end. It's without end. And it's because whether you are a person who wants to serve someone who's experiencing homelessness or ensure that you're a big part of the community and helping with like sporting events and things with kids, it does not matter. Like as humans, our greatest need is to feel love, and it is on each of us to give that in the way that we can. Mm-hmm. And so I would just I'm constantly reminded of that. Like we talk about Maslow's hierarchy of need, and obviously you're in that business, and I think those things are so important. And actually, the thing that humans cannot survive without is love.
yeah, it's so true. I had someone ask me a question this morning. So who's your biggest competitor as a nonprofit? Is it different homeless service providers? Because you're all going for similar funding. And I'm like, well, we actually don't go for operational funding. That's not in our model. And I said, our biggest competitor for those that we serve are drug cartels. Oh. And they looked at me like,
I love that.
What are you talking? I'm like, they're the ones that are keeping people homeless. You want me to drive you downtown and show you where that's happening? Because that's what we're up against. We're up against something that's maybe not visible to others. And as a nonprofit, you're here to collaborate. You're here to help. Hopefully you don't have turf wars and you're trying to solve the issue. Ultimately, you're trying to put yourself out of business
100%.
as a nonprofit. If that's true to your mission, how do we eliminate ourselves as quickly as possible?
100%.
Right? But I think sometimes you just have to think about competition being what?
Yeah. I love that. That was so beautiful.
Well, I don't know of a better place other than that to end this first podcast. That was fantastic.
Should we see him dance?
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Frank?
As soon as we turn off the cameras. But I probably am listening to classical and opera. Like
really loud?
I have a level of sophistication you might not be aware of. Hey, thank you both so much. This has been amazing, and it's been so insightful and so meaningful. I know everybody's going to get a lot out of this, and hopefully this will engage people in the community to become more involved. So thank you.
Yep. Policyproject.org.
Yes.
Check it.
So for Emily Bell McCormick, the best first guest we could have ever had. For my co-host, Preston Cochrane, The Other Side Village, The Other Side Academy. And for myself, Frank Dolce, thank you for tuning in to eHub Gives a Ship. Thank you for listening to the Know Your Ship podcast presented by eHub. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review.